So the recording has started, and now let me share my screen with you guys. Okay, so here we are. We can zoom in a little and make it full screen. Okay, so I hope you guys can see this terminal, and today I'll take your questions later in the week, and today I'll start the class directly because this is related to something that you are going to do tomorrow in the lab. So it's better that we give our maximum time to this topic so that you basically get some preparation for the lab tomorrow. So let us see how we can do this. So let me copy this file and see. So let's see, we have this. Now, let me define this function here, and we call this function num, f. What? I call it f1. f1, this function, it takes no argument, and basically it is returning nothing. So we'll call this function in main. So let's say cout pub. So let's say this is our program for the time being. Okay. Now, if I compile this program and run this program, what will be the output of this program? What will be the output of this program? Zero. Why zero? Why nothing? Aren't we doing this cout? So why are you guys saying zero or nothing? Have I forgotten C++ or? It will output both strings. Okay, thank you, Muhammad Fareh. And I hope that you're right and it will output both strings. So let's see, we compile. So let me mute whoever is this. Okay, there you are, you're muted. And okay, so let us run this code and see what happens. Okay, so calling f1 in the main, and then we call f1, and inside f1 is executed inside the body of f1. We are printing out the string f1 called. So both these strings are printed. Okay. So here is the program again for your kind attention. Okay. So let's see this. Is it clear, the program so far? Okay, so I'm sorry if the screen was stuck, but you can see the program now. Okay, so it's quite easy to understand. So it will be printing both these strings. Okay, so if this is clear, then let me make a slight modification, and then I'll ask you guys what will happen to this program. Here, basically, we call F1. So what will be the output of this program? And first of all, will this program compile or not? And if yes, what will be the output of this program? And how do you imagine in your mind what will happen when we execute this program? You know the working of functions. What happens when a function is called? Okay. So run this program in your mind by looking at it and tell us what will happen and what will be the output of this program. Usman Tahir, answer the question that I am asking. It will print F1 infinite number of times. Okay. Any other response? Both strings will be printed infinitely. It will call itself. Okay, yes, it is calling itself. Okay, so this function is calling itself. F1 called F1. Very good. Okay. So what will be the output? So Usman Tahir and Muhammad Fareh have responded, but what about the others? What do you think will be printed on the screen? By looking at this functionality, it prints the string infinitely. Which string? So Usman Tahir, why are you saying that both strings will be printed infinitely? If you run it like if you run it in your mind, keeping in mind the working of a function call, it prints the string calling F1 infinitely. Yes, so F1 called will be printed infinitely, okay? Not calling F1. Okay, so let us run this program step by step. Okay? Let me go to that screen and let us run it step by step. So program will start executing from this main function. Okay, so main line will be executed, then it will execute this line, calling F1. Okay, so calling F1 will be printed, and then it will execute this line. Okay, line number 16, which will basically call F1. Okay, and now we know by our last few weeks that when a function is called, execution flow will jump to the start of this function. Okay, so it will jump to the start of this function F1 on line number 5, and it will execute the body of the function. Okay, so the function will be body of the function will be executed. Line number 6 will be executed. F1 called will be printed, and then on line number 8, F1 is being called again. Okay, so just like when F1 was called on line number 16, we jump to the start of F1. Similarly, when we call F1 on line number 8, we jump again on the start of F1. Okay, so we jump on the start of F1, and the body of F1 will be executed. So it will print F1 called again on line number 6, and then on line number 8, it will call F1 again. Okay, so just like the previous time, we will again jump to the start of F1. Okay, and then F1 body will be executed again. F1 called will be printed on line number 6, and on line number 8, F1 is called again, so it will jump again to the start of F1. Okay, so this way F1 is being called inside F1, and every time F1 is called, it will jump to the start of F1, it will execute the body of F1, and during the execution of body of F1 is being called again, so again it will repeat this same process ad infinitum. Okay, so it will infinitely continue calling F1, and since executing F1 calls F1 again, so this process will go on forever, and F1 called this string, it will be continue to print forever. Your screen is not. Is my screen not visible to others also? Because I have shared this terminal screen with you guys. Okay, so yes, but some people are saying that the screen is not visible. So I hope it is visible now. Is it visible, Sam Iqbal, or still not visible? Okay, no response. So is it clear the code to everybody now? What is happening in this code? Okay, good. Okay, so if the code is clear, then just let us run it to see with our eyes to believe it. So here we go, and I'll run it.
Crush. Oh, please.
Can you guys hear me now? Okay, okay. So sorry, I think I was disconnected. So let me share the screen again. Okay, so I have shared the screen again, and in case I didn't realize that I was disconnected for last couple of minutes, so I'll repeat what I said at that time. So this basically is the code that I have modified a little. I have changed this function f1. On line number 8, we are creating this local variable x and assigning it the value 23. Okay. So I was asking you guys that when this function f1 is calling itself repeatedly again, okay, so we have seen that this will continue infinitely. So what do you think is happening in the background on the stack? Okay, remember there's a stack being maintained for every program, and stack has a special purpose. So when we are calling this function f1 repeatedly, what is happening on the stack, especially in terms of the variable x? What is happening on the stack? Size of the program increasing. What do you mean by the size of the program? It is being continually created and destroyed. That's a very key statement, but it is slightly wrong. It is storing x every time this function is recursively called in a new memory location. Okay, so is this new memory location on the stack or not? And you also, Usman Tahir, this memory being allocated, is it on the stack or not? Okay, so it is basically storing this x, creating it every time f1 is called. It is creating this variable x on the stack. Okay, very good. It's on the stack. And let's come back to this Symes comment that it is being created and destroyed. So you guys are saying that this variable is being created every time f1 is called, but is it being destroyed or not? Is it being destroyed or not? Okay, so variables, local variables are destroyed. When are the local variables destroyed? Usman Tahir? When are the local variables destroyed? Anybody else? When are the local variables destroyed? After the function ends. Okay, very good. When a function finishes its execution, the body of the function finishes and we reach the ending curly brace, then the execution is finished and local variables are destroyed. So in this case, every time f1 is called, does the execution of f1 finishes every time it is called? Do we reach the end curly bracket of f1 every time f1 is called? No. Okay, very good. So local variables are not destroyed until the function is completed. Okay, as long as that function has not finished, its local variables will remain on the stack. Okay, so the first time f1 is called in main, x is created on the stack. Okay? And before that function finishes, f1 is called again. Okay? F1 is called again and f1's body will be executed again, once again. So the previous copy of x will not be destroyed, but on top of it, on the stack, a new x will be created, okay, for this second call of f1. And while the second call of f1 is being executed, f1 is called again. Okay, so for this third call of f1, a new copy of x will be created. Okay, and similarly, as long as we keep calling f1, new copies of x will be created for every call of x on top of each other in the stack. Okay, and the previous copies of x will not be destroyed until the execution of f1, those previous calls of f1 complete. Okay, and here in this current implementation, none of the calls to f1 ever get completed. Okay, is this clear to everybody? What is happening on the stack when we are calling this function repeatedly? Will the stack eventually run out of memory and crash the program? Yes, very good. The stack will eventually run out of memory because even the biggest computer does not have infinite space. So ultimately, it will reach its limit. And in that case, as Usman Tahir pointed out, technical term for this situation is stack overflow. Okay. So Sahih, what part do you want me to repeat? Yes, every time a function is called, its local variables are created on the stack and they continue to exist until the execution of that function is finished. Okay, so every time f1 is called, its local variables, in this case there's only one local variable called x, it is created on the stack and it will continue to exist until that execution of f1 gets finished. Okay, but here we see that none of the uh, calls to f1 ever get finished. Okay, before f1 gets finished, there's another call to f1. Okay, so every time f1 is called, its local variable x will be created on the stack. Okay, and since before its completion we call f1 another time, so another copy of x will be created for the second call of f1 on the stack on top of the first copy of x. And similarly, this second call to f1, it will call f1 again, so a third copy of x will be created on top of the previous copies. Okay, and this process will continue forever because here the function f1 is calling itself repeatedly forever. Okay, so will infinite variables be created? Yes, it will try to create infinite variables, but since we have a certain limit on the stack space, so eventually it will cross that limit and a stack overflow will happen and the operating system will kill this program. Because it run out of memory, then no infinite variable. Yes, because in the computer we have a limited amount of memory, so ultimately it will run out of memory. Okay, and a stack overflow will happen and the operating system will detect this and it will kill our program. Okay, is it clear to everybody? Okay, so we are not talking about memes right now, and okay, so if this is clear, then let us move forward. So this fact of a function calling itself, it's called recursion. Okay, or recursive call. Recursive means because the same thing gets repeated again and again. Okay, so this is a recursive call. Recursive is basically like a function calling itself, just like this f1 is calling itself again on line number 10. Okay, so this call is a recursive call. Function is calling itself. Okay, and this fact or this process is called recursion. Okay, so let me write it down here. Recursion. Okay, so recursion, it's a function calling itself. In computer science, recursion is a very powerful tool. Okay, there can be many problems that we can solve with recursion, but for that we have to control this recursion. Okay, recursion just like this, without any purpose, will result in endless or infinite function calls, and it will basically destroy or result in stack overflow. So yes, so we'll see how we can control this recursion and use this tool of recursion to do some useful computation. Okay, so let us see how we can do some useful computation using recursion. Okay, so we'll take this example of okay, let's take this factorial. Okay, factorial as Asher has mentioned. Okay, so let us take this example and follow, see how we can use recursion to solve such problems. For that, first of all, the problem has to be recursive in itself. Okay, only recursive problems can be solved using recursion. Okay, so if you can define a problem in a recursive way, then we can use recursion to solve this problem. So let's see how we can define a factorial. Also, a factorial of n, basically n is any number. We can define it recursively just like this. Factorial of n, you guys know factorial is, right? Let me write this. So n factorial is equal to n multiplied by n minus 1 multiplied by n minus 2 multiplied by whatever, and ultimately multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1. Okay, so this is n factorial. So this is a general definition, but we can define this problem of finding the factorial recursively. Okay, so n factorial can be written as, n factorial can be written as n multiplied by n minus 1 factorial. Okay, so here what we have done is that we have defined this factorial recursively. Okay, so we are defining factorial in terms of factorial. Okay, so n factorial is basically n multiplied by n minus 1 factorial. Okay, and what is n minus 1 factorial? Again, we can define it recursively, that n minus 1 factorial is equal to n minus 1 multiplied by n minus 2 factorial. Okay, so here this is a recursive definition of factorial because we are defining factorial in terms of factorial. Okay, so since we have formulated the problem recursively, therefore it would seem that recursion is perhaps a good tool to solve this problem. So let us solve this problem recursively, and we define this function factorial. Okay, call it, and we pass it a number n of which we want to find the factorial. Okay, so to find a factorial, we have to call this function factorial, and we pass it the value n minus 1. Okay, so the result of return value, since the factorial will return the value factorial, so that's why we change the return type to int. Okay, and once we have this, we can multiply the result of n multiplied by temp. Temp will basically store the factorial of n minus 1. Okay, and then we can return the result. Okay, so result is just like let me put line numbers. Just like we have defined on line number 5, n factorial is equal to n multiplied by n minus 1 factorial. Okay, so we define this function factorial of n as, the result is defined as, on line number 13, n which is passed to the function multiplied by factorial of n minus 1. Okay, so let me correct the spelling of factorial. Okay, so result is defined as n multiplied by factorial of n minus 1, and factorial of n minus 1 we calculated using the same function, but this time passing it n minus 1. Okay, so the result of this function will be stored in temp, and we multiply this result with n, and then return the result as factorial of n. Okay, now this is recursive function call. Okay, because factorial is calling itself factorial. Okay, so it will continue indefinitely. So if it is to continue indefinitely, then that is wrong for us. Okay, because calculating a factorial is not an infinite process. Calculating a factorial is a finite process. Okay, so we have to control this recursion in such a way that ultimately, when you see n factorial is n multiplied by n minus 1 factorial, and n minus 1 factorial is n minus 1 multiplied by n minus 2 factorial, and n minus 2 factorial is equal to n minus 2 multiplied by n minus 3 factorial. Okay, so ultimately this will continue on recursively until it reaches these lower numbers. Okay, so 3 factorial is 3 multiplied by 2 factorial. Okay, and 2 factorial is 2 multiplied by 1 factorial, and 1 factorial is equal to 1. Okay, so after 1, this recursive process should stop and it should not continue indefinitely. Okay, so in our code we have to put some condition that if we have reached this limit, then the recursion should not continue further, but rather it should stop at that point. Okay, so this we can control it in our code here, that if the recursion has reached these lower numbers, let's say 1, if n equal 1, okay, then instead of continuing calling factorial further, just stop this recursion and return 1. Okay, because factorial of 1 is 1. Okay, so let us test this function and then we'll see its working step by step. So first we call this factorial for a small number. Let's say we call factorial of 5. So, and here we print this out factorial okay. So I think this is good. Let us run it and see what happens. See, factorial returned 120. Okay, so 120 is basically 5 factorial. 5 multiplied by 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1 is equal to 120. Okay, so now let us dig in and see what was happening in this function set number. Okay, so is it clear to you guys before I move further? Okay, what I will do is I will put print statements at different location in this program and then run this program again, and those print statements will basically give us an idea what is happening in this function. Okay, so first of all we print a print statement here. We basically say cout factorial called with n is equal to n. Okay, and here we factorial is returning with result equal to result. Okay, so and here we in the if statement, let's also put result equal to, here we write directly 1 because last time when it reaches 1, it will not reach the end, rather it will return directly from here. Okay, but this statement should be before returning. Okay, so before returning 1, it will basically output the statement. Okay, so okay, so this is it, and let us run it again. You see, main calls factorial and passes 5 to it. Okay, so first time factorial is called, it basically gets 5. Okay, let me, I think it would be better if I open these two things together. So okay. So the first time we call factorial here on line number 32 in main, we pass it 5. Okay, so this factorial is called, code jumps here and n receives 5. Okay, so this is the first call to F1 and we see it here, factorial called with n is equal to 5. Okay. So this line is printed for the first call of n, and since n is not equal to 1, so this if body is skipped. This if body is skipped, line number 13 to 16, and instead the code comes here. The code comes here, and here it will first try to evaluate the right side of the assignment operator, and the right side of the assignment operator is calling factorial again and passing it n minus 1. Okay, so 5 minus 1, it becomes 4. So factorial is called again, and code jumps here. Okay, a second call to factorial. And this line is printed again, that factorial is called with n is equal to 4. Okay, similar body of factorial will be executed second time. This if will be skipped, will come here again. It will try to evaluate this body, function call, and factorial will called again, and this time n is 4. So n minus 1 will be passed 3. Okay, code will jump here again with n is equal to 3, and this line will be called again. And here we see factorial called when n is equal to 3. Okay, again similarly, body will be executed, factorial will be called again, n minus 1 is equal to 2, and jump again at the start on line number 9, and this line will be printed, factorial will be called when n is equal to 2, factorial body will be executed, and again it will come here, this line will be printed, this time n is equal to 1. Okay, so factorial called when n is equal to 1, this is printed here. Okay, factorial called when n is equal to 1. Okay. This time it will see here, go here and execute this line, n is equal to 1. So instead of skipping if, it will go inside the if body. Okay. So inside the if body, it will print this line, that factorial is returning with result equal to 1. Okay, and this will return 1. Okay. So this call to factorial, it will finish because there is a return statement. So one thing, so far we have said that function execution finishes when we reach the end statement. Okay? So we will slightly correct this and say a function execution finishes whenever a return statement is executed in the function. Okay, so this return statement, it will finish this last call to factorial by returning 1. Okay, so far there were 5 calls to factorial, and we are in this last call, and this last call has finished by returning 1. Okay, those 4 calls, previous calls, are still open. Okay, so this one that is being returned in the last call, where will it return? Where will this one value be sent or returned? It will be sent in the second last call, where this factorial 1 was called when n was equal to 2. N was equal to 2, and in the second last call we had called factorial 1. Okay, so this one returned by the last call, it will be returned here. Okay? It will be returned here and it will be stored in temp. So temp has been created for every call. Huh? So this one will be returned in the temp that was created for the second last call. So again, the result will be created for every call. So here n was 2, and temp has the value returned by factorial 1, which is equal to 1. So result will be 2 multiplied by 1. Okay? So the second last call, it will also return this result, and before returning, it will just print this value, that factorial, the second last call, is returning with result equal to 2. Okay? Now where will this value 2 returned by the second call, it will be sent? So the second last call is ending, but there are 3 other calls that are still open to factorial. Okay, so this value 2 will be returned to the third last call. Okay, in third last call, n was equal to 3, and we had called factorial n minus 1, which was equal to factorial 2. Okay, so this factorial 2 is now returning the value 2. Okay, so it will return it to the third last call. Okay, the third last call, this factorial 2 will be replaced by 2, and it will be stored in the temp that was created for the third last call, and this result n was equal to 3 at that time. So 3 multiplied by 2 will be stored in the result variable that was created for the third last call, and the third last call will ultimately also reach its end and finish and return the result, which is equal to 6. But before returning the result, it will basically print this message that factorial returning with result equal to 6. Okay, so result equal to 6. Where will this be returned? Again, there are still 2 calls open to factorial that have not finished yet. Okay, so the fourth last call, which was the second call, n was equal to 4, and it had called on its line number 18 factorial 3. Okay, so factorial 3, the third last call, will basically return here in the fourth last call, and factorial 3 will be replaced by its return value, which is equal to 6. Okay, so this 6 will be stored in this temp variable that was created for the fourth last call. Okay, and this temp multiplied by n was equal to 4 in that call. So 6 multiplied by 4, the result variable for this call will receive the value 24, and it will return 24. But before returning, it prints this message that factorial is returning with n is equal to 24. Okay, so 24 will again be returned, and where will it be returned? It will be returned to the fifth last call, which was the first call to factorial, which was called in main. Okay, so the first call to factorial received n equal to 5, and it called on line number 18 factorial n minus 1 or factorial 4. Okay, so this value 24 returned by factorial 4 will be returned to the first call, where stored in temp value. So temp of the first call will receive the value 24, and it will multiply this 5 with 24, and the result will value 120 be stored. And this first call, or the fifth last call, which was the first call to factorial, it will also returning this result 24 multiplied by 5, which is 120, and before returning, it will print this message that factorial is returning with result 120. Okay, so this was the first call to factorial, and it was called from here main. Okay, so main we had called factorial 5. So this first call to factorial, which was called here, it will return the value 120 here in main, where it was called first on line number 32. Okay, so line number 32, factorial 5 returned 120, which is stored in the value variable x, and we print this value here as factorial returned 120. Okay, so this message is being printed in main. Okay, so here we see that if we control our recursion, infinite recursion, we can define a condition where we can say that ultimately this recursion should end, and you can no longer further continue to call this factorial infinitely. Okay, so in every recursion we can define such a case to end this recursion. Okay, so we can control the recursion and not let it go infinitely. Okay? And once we start controlling the recursion, we can solve many problems which, if they are defined recursively, they can be solved very elegantly using recursion. Okay, factorial, you can also basically calculate factorial using loops. Okay, but using a recursive function call to calculate factorial is much more elegant. We'll see, I'll rewrite this code again, and we'll see that it's much more elegant than using a loop. Okay, so recursion can be an elegant solution to a lot of problems that can themselves, if defined recursively. Okay, so this is an example of using recursion, and this time we use recursion to control or calculate a factorial. So is this code clear to everybody? Okay, so there are many problems that can be solved using recursion. We'll continue this topic during next week also, I mean this week also in the next classes. But for the moment, tomorrow is your lab on recursion. So I hope this introduction will give you some insight and you will be able to at least do some calculations using recursion in the lab. Okay, easy elegance. No, elegance is basically you can write this code and it is beautiful to look at. So let me rewrite this code again. So this is our factorial, and let me rewrite this function. So if you see, we can even write this one. How simple this function looks like. It's exactly the same function. I have just simplified the code, and this function calculates factorial. Okay, so let me compile it again and see, factorial returned 120. We can even basically skip these printfs and make our code more fit. This you see, very small program. The factorial function itself is only 3 lines, and it calculates the factorial. Okay, is it clear? The simplified code. I have just simplified it. Otherwise, it is exactly the same code that we had seen earlier with printfs and everything. Oh, sorry, cout and everything. Way easy than the other. I don't think it's the code is actually the same, but the working is more clear in the last one. Okay, the last one was more verbose. There were a lot of couts and a lot of statements, but in that, if you want to explain to somebody how it works, then it was clear in the more clear in the earlier version than in this simplified version. Okay? Because in the simplified version, the return statement is also calling factorial function, so it's difficult to explain to somebody that inside the return function call is happening, etc., etc. Okay? Okay, so let me first just highlight one more problem or point here. We will go to the Euler function. I think this was it. Okay, so this was it. So let us see. Every time factorial is called, factorial calls itself again. Okay, so ultimately, why does the recursion end? Because every call to factorial is calling itself again, but on a smaller version of the problem. Okay, so every call to factorial n basically calls factorial on n minus 1. Okay, and factorial n minus 1 will call factorial again on n minus 2. Okay, so every time factorial is called again, the problem side is being reduced. Okay, so problem is being reduced, and ultimately the problem will become so simple that it will reach factorial 1. Okay? And for factorial 1, we have a special case here. That if factorial 1 is called, then no need to continue recursion further, but rather factorial 1 is equal to 1. Okay, so we return 1 directly. Okay, so this is one key aspect of recursion, that for recursion to succeed, every call to recursion or every call to itself should be on a reduced version of the problem. Okay, so factorial n is calling itself again, but on a reduced version of the problem and calling on factorial n minus 1. So every call to factorial is basically reducing the problem 5, 4, 3, 2, and ultimately we reach factorial 1. And factorial 1 is simple enough that instead of doing anything else, we return directly 1. Okay, so every time you implement recursion, you have to keep in mind that when you call a function again, it should be called on a reduced version of itself, or a reduced version of the problem, and this way the problem will continue getting reduced, and ultimately it will be reduced so much that solving it will be trivial. Okay, just like solving factorial 1 is trivial. Okay, we just return 1. Okay, so this is another key principle of implementing recursion, and we'll continue this discussion in the next class. Is it clear? Any questions regarding recursion? We just saw one example of calculating factorial with recursion, and in the next couple of classes we'll see some other problems also as an examples of being solved by recursion. Okay, but if you have any other question, any immediate pressing question right now, you can ask it right now. Yes, so how about we other people are also asking questions about assignments. So how about we have a session where you can ask questions about the assignments and any other questions you like. Okay, so how about a session tomorrow? Are you guys free sometime tomorrow so that we can have a session about assignment questions? Stop marking the attendance.
Not tomorrow.
Okay, so when can we have it? Because the assignment deadline is on Friday. Friday, yes. Thursday might be too late for somebody, some people.
Wednesday?
Thursday, it is good for me, but if you guys want to wait till Thursday, then you will have only one day to submit the assignment. But I think it's doable in one day. Okay, so when are you guys free on Wednesday and Thursday?
So Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning at what time?
So anytime 8, 9.
Okay, so let's meet after 7 p.m. I don't know if everybody's free after 7 p.m. So let's discuss this for temporary. Let's keep it on Wednesday and let's discuss this tomorrow in the class. Okay. So right now it's getting late. So let's discuss it tomorrow in the class. And there was a question, just a minute. There was a question. Will every call create its own temporary variable? Yes. Every call to this factorial function will create its own temp variable and its own result variable. Okay, so these local variables will be created for every time factorial function is called. Okay.
Sir?
Yes.
Sir, can you move the deadline of the assignment to the 10th so that it's on Sunday? Because we actually have a quiz on Wednesday and we have two quizzes. We have two quizzes this week, and we also have an assignment for maths as well for Thursday or Wednesday, I think.
Oh, I can move it, but there is a assignment coming right after it. There's a third assignment also. So then you won't have time for a third assignment. Third assignment is going to be slightly more work than this second assignment. That is why I was keeping more time for a third assignment.
Okay, sir.
Okay, but this is easy, I think. You won't get much trouble doing it. If you have done assignment 1, assignment 2 should be doable. So, okay, so kindly mark your attendance here and see you guys tomorrow, okay? So we'll continue with this recursion tomorrow. I'll stop this recording now.